Hi all. So in this, we are going to discuss about Lord Shiva. Like the form, the supreme is always with a form. So I would like to start off discussing this topic. Like with a beautiful verse that comes as a part of Shiva Mahapurana, the Vidyeshwara Samhita, fourth chapter. In that, the second verse. Puja Japesha Gunarupa Vilasanam Yukti Priyena Manasa Parishodhanam Yat Tatsantatam Mananamishwara Drishtilabhyam Sarveshu Sadhana Vareshvapi Mukhya Mukhyam. It's a very lengthy verse. I had to take a deep breath. So in this verse, it says, it talks about the importance of worship of Lord Shiva and meditating on the pastimes of Lord Shiva. The mind, it could be your best friend, or it could be the greatest evil at the end of the day. If it starts deliberating on something, it keeps on thinking various things. It thinks of, okay, I want to go to Switzerland, like, and the next second it thinks of Australia, the next second it thinks of USA, you know and all those things. So the mind keeps on wandering here and there. It's very difficult to control the mind. That's why chanchalam hi manah Krishna, Bhagavad Gita, which is the words of Lord Shiva, there in the 6th chapter 34th verse, Arjuna says, I can even control the wind, hmm, with my arrow, but I can never control the mind. Oh, Krishna. He says that. So the mind, like that's where. So this verse talks about completely focusing the mind on the Supreme Maheshwara. You know, that's what, like focus in that way. Mananam Ishwara Drishti Labhyam. Ishwara Drishti means, like the glance of Ishwara, the glance, for the glance of Mahadeva to fall on you, you need to meditate on his form. You need to chant his names, and then do kirtanam, kirtanam, and then chant his names, and also meditate on his form. Hear his beautiful pastimes that are described in the Puranas at the end of the day. So in that way, you get the glance of Maheshwara. So it talks about his form and his attributes. So he is not aguna or nirguna. Aguna nirguna comes, very often, but that just describes how he is beyond all the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. That's why he's referred to as Shuddha Sattva. Yes, Shuddha Sattva te Brahmaloke tu parantakale. Kaivalya Upanishad, Mahanarayana Upanishad, and the Mundaka Upanishad describes him that he is beyond the mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. Shuddha Sattva. You know, so that's why, like Vyasacharya says, I cannot even describe his qualities. And even if I have to describe his Isha Idrisascha Mahadeva Bhuyamscha Bhagavan Ajaha Nahi Sarve Maya Shakya Vaktum Bhagavato Gunaha Apivarsha Sagasrena Satatam Pandunandana. Even if I have to describe his gunas, that is the divine qualities and characteristics and attributes, oh Arjuna, I cannot describe it in even in thousands and thousands of years, which comes in the last chapter of Drona Parva Mahabharata. So he has, like his attributes, and he has a form, and his attributes is what is glorified, and he is identified by those attributes, which is what we are going to see, where all, in the Vedas and Upanishads we see those, attributes and characteristics of Lord Shiva described in a very beautiful way. The very known reference by like by everybody, and which clearly highlights how Lord Shiva is the supreme, like Kaivalya Upanishad, Uma Sahayam Parameshwaram Prabhum Trilochanam Neelakantam Prashantam Dhyatva Munurgachati Bhutayonim Samasta Saksham Tamasak Parastat. The one who is eternally with Uma, and who is described as Parameshwara, and who is the supreme Lord, Neelakanta, who is blue throated, Trinetram or Trilochanam, who is three-eyed. By meditating on this form within your heart, you go beyond ignorance. The mind keeps wandering on different things. It keeps thinking of name, fame, wealth, knowledge, beauty, sex, power, all those things. but you have to restrict the mind somehow. And for that, you need the blessings of Shiva Bhaktas. Without that, it's not going to happen. And the blessings of the Guru, you know. So, focusing the mind on the form of Mahadeva. So, and this same Kaivalya Upanishad talks about, just before this, it talks about how he is Adi and Anadi, Vibhum, Arupam. That just defines how Lord Shiva is present everywhere. No, we just saw in the previous go live I mentioned there is a Sakala aspect and Nishkala aspect. The formless or the all-pervasive aspect, Sarvatvam aspect of Lord Shiva, and also he has a form. Mahadeva with a form is present everywhere. Now, I or you cannot claim that we are present everywhere. Or I or you cannot claim that what is going on in the hearts of all the living entities. But Lord Shiva can do that. That's the difference that comes there. So the same, Achintyam Avyaktam Ananta Rupam, immeasurable form, like he has a form which cannot be described, which cannot be seen through the material eyes. Divya Chakshu, you need divine eyes. Divya Chakshur Mahateja. Krishna always envisions Lord Shiva in his heart. He's always in a yogic union, and he always envisions by intensely, he has been worshipping Lord Shiva for eons and eons. Sa Esha Rudra Bhaktascha Keshavo Rudra Sambhavaha. The Mahabharata, the Drona Parva also uses this reference, and also, like Divya Chakshur Mahateja, that reference comes in the 14th chapter of the Anushasana Parva, where Bhishma says that. So these are, that reference comes, where in the Kaivalya Upanishad. And also we see, like Ridagam Satyam Param Brahma Purusham Krishna Pingalam Urdhvaretam Virupaksham Vishwarupam Namamyaham. So this is also another important reference where the Supreme is defined with the attributes and characteristics. He is the personification of righteousness, Ridagam. Satyam, he is the personification of truth at the end of the day. Param Brahma, he is the supreme reality. Purusham, Purusho Vai Rudraha. The same Upanishad says Purusho Vai Rudraha. The Supreme is Lord Shiva. We have the wonderful 16 verses of Purusha Suktam present in all the 5 Vedas. Shukla Yajurvedam, Krishna Yajurvedam, Atharvana Vedam, Sama Vedam, Rig Vedam. Considering Yajurveda, splitting it into 2, there are 5 Vedas. So you find that 16 verses present in all the 5 Vedas, which is dedicated only to Mahadeva, Maheshwara. There are some places in the Puranas where you see, okay, fine, the Purusha Suktam is referred to Vishnu also, but, on the whole, from a primary perspective, it is referring only to Lord Shiva. Brahma is also sometimes referred to as Purusha in the Puranas, or Indra is also referred to as Purusha in the Puranas. But the ultimate Veda Purusha or Paratpara Purusha is Maheshwara. Krishna Pingalam, striking reference. You won't be able to find this reference for any other Devata. Brahma or Indra or Hari also, even Narayana. Kanishta Krishna Pingalaha, 850th name of Lord Shiva in the Shiva Sahasranama is Krishna Pingala, right? Karalo Vikato Mundah Purusha Krishna Pingalaha. That also comes in the Valmiki Ramayana and Mahabharata. And you have many other references, like Ambikapatri Ishanaha, Pinaki Vrishabahanaha, Eko Rudrah Param Brahma, Purusha Krishna Pingalaha. Shiva Mahapurana, Saura Upapurana, Shankara Samhita, Suta Samhita, Skanda Purana, Linga Purana, Narada Purana, Padma Purana, Mahabharata, Vamana Purana, Kurma Purana, etc., etc., etc. You find so many references for Krishna Pingalam all over the scriptures attributed only to Maheshwara. That's the point to be noted. It's one word, which refers to Uma Maheshwara. Krishna means dark. Mata is referred to as dark in complexion. And Pingala means yellow or golden. It's only Lord Shiva that is referred to as golden everywhere. Taittiriya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka, Chandogya, everywhere. So, Krishna Pingalam, like that that refers to Uma Maheshwara. Urdhvareta, another striking reference for Lord Shiva, who is beyond passion or who is the supreme at the end of the day, who is one over Kama, who is one over passion at the end of, who is beyond passion. He is the Ishvara of Kamadev. And also, it could also refer, like that he is the supreme, Urdhvareta, another striking reference which comes, very often for Lord Shiva in the scriptures. You cannot find this very often, attributed to Vishnu or Brahma. Virupaksha means, who is the odd-eyed, one who has odd eyes, or one who is described as three-eyed. Like that is also, like in my second book that I'm writing, I have quoted many references at the end of the day. It will take some time, making it, like more comprehensive. It will be very detailed. My second book, like when compared to my first book, definitely. So that's why it's taking some time. So Virupaksha, like, and then Vishwarupaya by Namo Namaha. So all these, like it defines the attributes of Lord Shiva at the end of the day. So he has a form. That's what it says. This comes in the Mahanarayana Upanishad. And the other thing, like where you see Kailasa Shikara Bhasa Himavadgiri Samsthitaha Neelakantam Trinetram cha Tanme Manashiva Sankalpamastu. Neelakantam Trinetram cha Tanme Manashiva Sankalpamastu. So that's what it says. So this is another, like where you can match this with Kaivalya. So Neelakantam, there also it comes, there also Neelakantam comes. So here it says Trinetram. Shiva Sankalpa says Trinetram, the 25th verse of Shiva Sankalpa Upanishad, which is present in the Rigveda Kilabhaga, which is also recited as a part of Mahanyasam in the Shiva temples during Pradoshams, and also Masa Shivaratris and Mahashivaratri, which is going to come. So, like, so that, like Trinetram, three-eyed. So, and it talks about the one who is in Kailasha, which is definitely referring to Lord Shiva. Now, here you cannot say Antaratma and all. It is referring to Mahadeva only. And Trilochanam, Trinetram is synonymous to Trilochanam, which comes in the Kaivalya Upanishad. See how, like it verily defines the attributes of Lord Shiva only as the Supreme. It doesn't define anybody else. So that's another third reference, present in the Veda. So first we saw Uma Sahayam, that verse from the Kaivalya Upanishad. Second verse we saw from the Mahanarayana, Radhagam Satyam verse. And then Kailasa Shikara Bhasa, the third verse that is present in the Shiva Sankalpa Suktam of the Rigveda Kilabhaga. And the fourth reference is present in the Krishna Yajurveda Taittiriya Samhita. त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् एष ते रुद्रभागस्तञ्जुषस्वतेन वसेन परो मूजवतोति ह्यवतत धन्वा पिनाकहस्तकृत्तिवासाः. Very beautiful reference. It starts off with Pratipurusha Mega Kapalan. In this same verse only, Ambika Saha. Like the one who resides, the one who is eternally with Ambika. Uma Sahaya also comes, Ambika Saha also comes in the Veda. And like we know the reference for this verse, we have to completely surrender to the three-eyed Lord who is the giver of prosperity. Pushti Vardhanam. Pushti means prosperity. Aishwarya means prosperity. Pushti means prosperity. Shreyas, Shreyaha, also that also comes in the Vedas. Shreyaha means prosperity. So the one who the giver of Shreya is Lord Shiva. The giver of Aishwarya or Pushti is Lord Shiva. Pushti Vardhanam. Urvarukam eva bandhanan. Mrityor mukshiyam amrita. Let me not get rid of, like immortality. Let me, like, don't keep me away from immortality. You are the giver of immortality. Uta amritatvasya ishanaha. Uta amritatvasya ishanaha. Purusha Suktam. When you split that, Uta amritatvasya ishanaha. So the one who is the embodiment of immortality or the giver of immortality is Lord Shiva. So that's the thing, like, and then, it goes on to say, Eshate Rudrabhagas Tanjushasvatena Vasena Paro Mujavatoti. So here also we see very specific references. You cannot say, okay, oh, Narasimha is also three-eyed. And then, you can attribute this verse to him. Not at all. Lord Shiva is always three-eyed. I've covered also these topics in my second book. It will be a very, very hardcore Shaivite work. I can definitely vouch for that. But it's still in works. So, like Mujavat, the reference Mujavat comes, like Mujavat is referred to the mountains, which there is a reference in the Shiva Mahapurana. You can understand the Vedic hymns only with the Upabrahmanams or supporting facts in the Smritis.
So Mujavat, like the resider, the one who resides in the mountains, Mujavat mountains, and also Krittivasa, the one who is wearing the skin of Narasimha as his garment, or the one who wears the skin of an animal as his garment. Pinaka Hastaha Krittivasa. Kritim Vasana. And then, like you find this reference also coming in Rudram. Medushtama Shivatama Shivona Sumana Bhava Parame Vriksha Ayudan Nidhaya Kritim Vasana Achara Pinakam Vibhradagahi in Kritim Vasana. So that reference comes. The one who resides, one who is wearing the skin of the Ahankari Tamoguni Narasimha as his garment. So that's what it means. And like Kritim, this also for this, like where you find the reference in the Shiva Mahapurana and the Skanda Purana, I think Linga Purana, Linga Purana, first canto, 96th chapter, you find this reference, and also the Shatarudra Samhita, where the story of Sharabha is described. There also you find this, Nrisimha Kritti Vasana. This phrase is mentioned at the end of the day. If I'm not wrong, Shiva Mahapurana, Shatarudra Samhita, 12th chapter, 36th verse, and the Linga Mahapurana, first canto, 96th chapter, 115th verse. So there, this reference comes, like Kritim Vasana. So Nrisimha Kritti Vasana. So Veerabhadra tore the skin of Nrisimha and handed it over to Lord Shiva as a gift. So Nrisimha Kritti Vasana, he wore the skin of Narasimha as his garment. And that Kritim Vasana comes in the Vedas as dedicated to Lord Shiva, the one who is wearing the skin of an animal as his garment. Very beautiful reference, which comes 4 times in the Veda. And also, you find many other references where he is described as five-faced, three-eyed, and Pashunam Pati, Saumya Rupa, Aghorebhyo, Taghorebhyo, he has a Raudra Rupa and Saumya Rupa. He is the most beautiful, most handsome. At the same time, he takes all the ferocious forms at the end of the day to punish the evil and also destroy the ahankara of all the devatas. He took the form of Sharabha to destroy the ahankara of Matsya Kurma Varaha Narasimha, and Kankala Murti he took to destroy the ahankara of Vamana. He appeared as in the Lingodbhava to destroy the ahankara of Hari and Brahma. So that's how it goes. These are some of the Vedic verses. There are many actually, but these are some of the Vedic verses where Lord Shiva is described with a form. And also, like you find, Hiranmaya Purushaha is described as the golden complexioned Lord. Ishavasya Upanishad, Taitriya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Umagum Haimavatim, the golden complexioned lady, the son of or the daughter of Himavan, or the golden complexioned lady. You can interpret it in different ways at the end of the day when it comes to Sanskrit. And also one more, Mundaka Upanishad. So 6 out of the 10 Dashopanishads describe the Supreme having a golden complexioned Lord. So everywhere, like that's where Sundaramurti Nayanar also says, Ponnar Meniyane Pulitolai Anintavane. Oh, the Supreme Lord, one who is wearing the skin of a tiger as his garment, and one who is completely golden in complexion. Apart from you, who I will think of? Apart from you, apart from the golden complexioned Lord who is wearing the skin of a tiger as his garment, who will I think of in my mind? So this goes back to the reference that comes, I said about the Shiva Mahapurana. It's very difficult to control the mind, but in order to get that drishti, Ishvara drishti labhyam, Ishvara drishti means the glance of Mahadeva. You can acquire the glance of Maheshwara only by focusing your mind on the form of Lord Shiva. So that's the thing. And with this supporting this, and also like you have Shravanam Kirtanam Shambhoho Mananam Cha Mahattaram. The same reference, like 4th chapter Vidyeshwara Samhita has the 16th verse. And 19th verse goes on to say, Shravanam Kirtanam Shambhoho Mananam Veda Sammatam. This is how you start off. Shravanam, first thing. Like Shravanam is actually hearing about Lord Shiva. That's where, you get to know, okay, who is Lord Shiva? What does he look like? What is he capable of doing? What all he can do? How is he alone the supreme controller? How is he, how does he have everything under his control? Where does he reside? What does he do? all those things. He's the doer of 5 activities, and all those things, we get answers slowly at the end of the day. So that's how, like Shravanam, hearing more and more about Lord Shiva. No, it cannot be like, okay, oh, I've heard it once. Okay, fine. Like I have become a master. No, nothing like that. No. Shvetaketu had to get that knowledge of Tattvamasi. Tattvamasi means, you're a part of that supreme at the end of that. It doesn't mean that, you are that, like, or you are the supreme. Because, there are many other phrases or quotations, present phrases in the Upanishads that describe the difference between the Jivatma and Paramatma. We have to correlate everything at the end of the day and not see in bits and pieces like what the Mayavadis do. Shvetaketu had to hear that, like Tattvamasi 9 times, literally. And then he got the knowledge of Mahadeva. And that Shvetaketu reference is also mentioned in the Skanda Purana as an Upabrahmanam, that he was a devotee of Lord Shiva. Right? So like that, we have to hear 100,000 times. Keep hearing again and again and again and again until your mind is, like completely engrossed in Shiva Bhakti and Shiva Upasana. You should not think of anything else. Focusing on Maheshwara. That's the main thing. And then Kirtanam, by chanting the names of Lord Shiva. There are 3 ways actually: Upamshu, Manasik, and Vachik. You can chant loudly, or you can chant in your mind, or you can just, like meditate without moving your lips. You can either chant it with just moving your lips, or you can chant loudly, or you can, just chant in your mind at the end of the day. Manasik, Vachik, and Upamshu, which is described in the 11th chapter of the Ishvara Gita, which is the 2nd canto of Kurma Mahapurana. Manasik, Vachik, and Upamshu. Kirtanam, like that is also important. But starts with Shravanam, hearing about Lord Shiva. That's when you get introduced to who is this being called Mahadeva. Right? That's when you develop that slowly, you start establishing that relationship with the Supreme. Jivatma, Paramatma, Sambandha starts off with Shravanam. And then Kirtanam, Shambhoho, Mananam, Veda Sammatam. Mananam, meditating on that form of divine Lordship, Maheshwara. So that's where, these are some of the, and Yoga Yajnavalkya Smriti and the Yoga Tattva Upanishad also uses a reference called, like Bindurupam Mahadevam Vyomakasham Sadashivam Shuddhas Patika Sankasham Drita Bhalendu Maulinam Panchavaktra Yutam Saumyam Dashabahum Trilochanam Sarvayudair Dritakaram Sarva Bhushana Bhushitam Umardadekam Varadam Sarvakarana Karanam. So this person, or this being, I should not say person, this being who is actually eternally with Uma, Umarda Deha, or who is sharing half of his body with Uma, or who has the Chandrarda Krita Shekara, who has the Chandra on his forehead, and who has 5 beautiful faces, Sadyojata Vamadeva, Aghora Tatpurusha Ishana, who has 3 eyes, who is the representation of ether, Vyomakasha, Sadashiva. And then Shuddha Spatika Sankasha, who is camphor white in complexion or golden in complexion. Drita Balendu Maulinam Panchavaktra Yutam Saumyam, who is very sweet, who is very beautiful, Saumya Rupam. Dashabahum Trilochanam, who has 10 hands. In fact, the Agamas go on to describe what is there in the 10 hands of Lord Shiva. Very beautiful. In the right hands, you find, like in one hand, he is showing the Abhaya Mudra. And in the other 4 hands, he has the weapons, Trishul. And then he has a thunderbolt. He has an axe. He has a sword. And in the left hands, he has a noose, that is the Pasha, a serpent, like a snake, basically. And then a weapon called elephant goad, and then a fire. And then he has Agni and a bell, Ganta. So this is how it goes on to describe. So this is how you meditate on this Pancha Brahma form of Lord Shiva. And this form is the form of Bhagavad Gita. We have discussed this many times. I don't want to delve into it. The first 5 chapters are the 5 phases of Lord Shiva. Then 10 chapters are the next 10 hands. The next 10 chapters are the 10 hands of Lord Shiva. 16th chapter is the Nabhi, or the navel of Lord Shiva. And the 17th and the 18th chapters are the feet of Maheshwara. So one should read Bhagavad Gita not to do Shivadvesham, actually, but to actually do upasana of Lord Shiva. So when you're reading the 6th chapter till the 15th chapter, you have to envision the 10 hands of Lord Shiva. and the weapons that he has. And when you're reading the 17th and the 18th chapters, you have to think of the lotus feet of Maheshwara, which is still being searched by Brahma and Hari. And the 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita should not be recited with Shiva Dvesham. With Tatparyam is Lord Shiva always. So wherever you see the form, I don't want to deviate much. The form is actually emphasized. Shuddha Prabha Achintya Rupaya. One more reference, I remember. I think the 371st verse of the Padma Purana, Patalakanda, 114th chapter. The Devatas use this reference. Shuddha Prabha Achintya Rupaya. Achintya Rupaya. Inconceivable. His form is inconceivable. You cannot envision that with material eyes. So that's how he's described as. Paratparam Purusham Vishwadhama. So the form of that supreme Veda Purusha cannot be envisioned with this material eyes. That's the thing. So these are some of the Vedic references, like Upanishadic references and references from the Vedas where Shiva is described with attributes and with a form. So I want to just focus on that topic alone. So keeping that in mind, like I would like to touch upon that reference, which, like a lot of people might have known about, but many people, like would not know about it. But that's a striking reference at the end of the day to showcase how Shiva with a form alone is the supreme. So, like where you find, in Padma Purana, Patalakanda, 105th chapter, where, Vishnu tries to envision Lord Shiva. He gets Bhasma Diksha and everything. And then, like when he meditates, he, in his heart, he tries to, like see a lamp. He envisions a lamp or a jyoti. The jyoti is also described, wherever Suvar Jyoti. So this comes in the Samavedam again. Jyoti, he is the embodiment of that, like light, infinite light or Jyoti at the end of the day. Yovai Rudraksa Bhagavan Yacha Tejas Tasmai Vai Namo Namaha. So he just sees a light at the end of the day. And then, he says that to Mahadeva, who is in front of him, but he doesn't realize it is Lord Shiva. And then he says that I see a light, I see a lamp at the end of the day, or a Jyoti. And then Lord Shiva says, your knowledge is incomplete, O Vishnu. And then Tato Bhasma Bhakshayeti Harimaha Harastataha Bhakshayishye Shivam Bhasma Snatvaham Bhasmana Pura. So you eat the sacred ash and you bathe with the sacred ash, Vibhuti or Bhasma. Bhasma is something that comes from by burning the cow dung. And it's not actually coming from the crematorium ground as some idiots think of. It is coming by burning the cow dung. And cow is described as holy, right? The holiest of the holiest in Sanatana Dharmam. So Bhasma is coming by burning the cow dung. And that process is also explained in the Brihad Jabala and also in Padma Purana. Very beautiful. So that, like you have to eat the sacred ash. You have to bathe with the sacred ash at the end of the day to envision the Supreme Maheshwara or to envision the Supreme. That's what Lord Shiva says. And then once he does that, he bathes, like with the sacred ash and he eats the sacred ash. And then he starts meditating. So with this also, I would like to mention, like when I was a child, I used to wonder in Tamil Nadu specifically, there is a practice, whenever I used to go to Shiva temples, people when the archaka or when the acharya like gives that bhasma, people take it and also they apply it on the forehead and also take a tinge of it and put it in their mouth. So I used to wonder why they do this, but that practice comes from Mahavishnu himself. That reference, when I read this reference, I could relate that. Oh yes, okay, fine, like that's where. So that's another. And then, and then he meditates, Vishnu meditates, and then he says, like he envisions Shuddha Spatika Sankasham Trinetram Dvibhujam Shivam Varadam Dakshino Haste Vamecha Abhayadam Vibhum Panchavarshi Avapusham Sharat Chandra Yutadgyutim. So in this way, he envisions the divine form of Lord Shiva, Varadam Dakshino Haste. With the right hand, he is giving boons, and Vamecha Abhayadam Vibhum. With the left hand, he is showing his Abhaya Mudra. Panchavarshi Avapusham. He is the oldest of the oldest, but he was looking like a 5-year-old kid. Sharat Chandra Yutadhyutam. He was having the Chandra on his forehead. And then he realizes, oh, this Lord Shiva who is showing me darshan in my heart, with this is that complete knowledge, that is that Mahadeva who is standing in front of me. And then he falls flat. Hariraha puradrishtah purushak shanta vigraha ityudirya mahavishnur shivapade papatata. He just falls flat. And then he says, Nashakyam basmano jane, prabhavam va kutastava, namastestu, tvameva sharanam gataha. I am incapable of understanding the glory of Basma. When I am incapable of understanding the glory of the sacred ash, how can I ever understand your glory? So the only way I can understand you is by surrendering to you. I surrender to you, Mahadeva. So, and then, and then he says, Tvatpada yugale shambur bhaktirastu sadamama. I should never ever give up on your feet, O Lord Shiva. I have to always keep meditating on your feet. And Mahadeva says, Basmadharana sampanno mama bhakto bhavishyasi. My devotee will never cast aside the Basma. There are many learnings, where Basma is an important thing at the end of the day, where Lord Shiva emphasizes that without that you cannot understand Lord Shiva. One should apply the Basma every day. But the other important striking factor here is actually Lord Shiva himself emphasizes here that meditating him with a form is much, much greater. Because, if you cannot meditate on a formless aspect, or you cannot meditate on a jyoti, right? You meditate on the Shiva Linga, but within the Linga represents his attributelessness. And then within the Linga, you have got to meditate on the form of Lord Shiva, because he is with attributes, he is with the characteristics, he is Saguna, basically, Saguna Brahman. He is with a form. Nirguna just represents that he is beyond the three modes of material nature, not like without qualities. Arupam just mentions that, he is beyond at the end of the day. But he is not formless. The formlessness is just an attribute, or the formlessness is actually represents his sarvatvam. That's all. So it doesn't mean that he is formless. So this is that striking factor, or the striking reference at the end of the day, where Lord Shiva is described with a Lord Shiva with a form is much greater than Lord Shiva, like that formless aspect. And Lord Shiva himself says that one should meditate on his form to have complete knowledge. If you just meditate on his formless aspect or the Jyoti, it is incomplete knowledge. And this reference also comes in the Brihad Jabala. And we see also devotees, the Sharanas, whose 800 plus Sharanas who appeared in the land of Andhra and Karnataka, and the 63 Nayanmars who appeared in the land of Tamil Nadu, they always worshipped Lord Shiva. Like when Mahadeva appeared in front of them, he appeared with a form. It was not like a formless voice speaking. No, he appeared with a form and then showed, darshan to them. Beja Mahadevi, she melts in devotion. She wants to see Lord Shiva as her own child. Vatsalya Bhavam. Akka Mahadevi saw Lord Shiva as her own lover. Madhura Bhavam. Virya Bhavam. We have examples for everything at the end of the day. And Rudra Pashupati Nayanar experiences Lord Shiva everywhere in whatever he encounters. And this doesn't mean that, Lord Shiva, okay, is present everywhere. I'm also Lord Shiva. No, that is not the thing. We cannot say that. But, Lord Shiva can say that he is present everywhere. So he experienced Lord Shiva everywhere. Even in a thief who came to steal at his house, he thought, okay, Lord Shiva himself has come to my house to steal something. Why? Nishangena ishudimate taskaranam pataye namo namo. Third Anuvakam of Rudram says, he is the Lord of dacoits. He is the Lord of all thieves. He steals all your sins. In that way, he is a stealer and he is a thief. He steals all your sins and he gives you moksha. That's why he's described that way. Or we could also relate this to the Rudra Pashupati Nayanar's experience that he had, So, we see, everywhere we see that, like Beja Mahadevi literally melts in devotion, and she always thinks of the baby form of Lord Shiva, thinks of her as her own child. And Lord Shiva grants her, saying that, you have become the grandmother. Since, Jagataha Pitaro Vande Parvati Parameshwaro, I am the Supreme Lord and I am the father of the entire universe. Since you have I have accepted you as my mother. You have become the grandmother of the entire universe, O Becha Mahadevi. And Kanappa Nayanar, on the other hand, he looks at Lord Shiva and then he says, like, oh Mahadeva, you have become so weak, oh Lord Shiva. You're not eating properly. Like, I have to feed you more and more and more and more. You're not eating properly. See, only a devotee, this is not something, this is that loving relationship that a devotee has with the Supreme Lord at the end of the day. So that's the point to be noted. Everyone envisioned Lord Shiva having a form. An outsider might think, okay, fine, what is he, like he's blabbering something. That's what the Brahmana thought when he was looking at Kanappa Nayanar. But he melted in devotion. Only a devotee can understand these feelings at the end of the day. It's that bhavam that the devotee exhibits. And to that, Lord Shiva reciprocates. Ye yatamam prabadhyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. He reciprocates. He says to Parvati Mata in the Matsya Purana 154th chapter, I will cast aside everything. I will even cast aside the entire universe and also Brahma, Hari and Indra, but not my dear devotees. And he goes on to serve his devotees. He becomes the devotee of his devotees. And that's why there is a saying, he is described as the supreme, Paratparam, the supreme of the supreme of the supreme. But he becomes the devotee of his devotees. In that way, his devotees are even more superior. Right? So that's the loving relationship, and all these things, like he has a name, he has a form, he has attributes and characteristics at the end of the day. That is what we need to, that is the final conclusion. And that formed Mahadeva, Shiva Eko Dhyayaha, Shivam Karaha, Sarvam Anyat Parityajya. Casting aside everything, this Mahadeva alone should be meditated upon and not anyone else. Casting aside Brahma, Hari, Indra, and also Kala Rudra. Because Kala Rudra is just an aspect of Maheshwara, partial manifestation of the Supreme Maheshwara. He is not the Supreme. Lord Shiva beyond the trio is the goal of all the Shaivites, not the Shiva belonging to the Trinity. And everywhere you find the differentiation mentioned all over the Puranas, all over the Itihasas, all over the Vedas, all over the Upanishads, all over the Agamas, all over the Smritis, etc. And you'll find many more references that I will be quoting in my second book too. So with that said, like even Krishna accepts this, like which I mentioned in my one of my previous lectures that I uploaded. Namaskurushva satatam dhyayasva cha maheshwaram samsara sagarad asmat achirad uddharishyati. He alone can grant moksha, the giver of moksha. And that is another thing where Shiva is the one who is the giver of moksha. And to Shiva only we beg like a beggar to grant moksha. Oh Mahadeva, please grant me moksha. Don't put me into the repeated cycles of birth and death. Bhave bhave nati bhave bhavaswamam. It is only to Lord Shiva we say that in the Vedas or Upanishads. You cannot ask to someone, who is repeatedly taking births and deaths, you cannot ask moksha to that being. Only a being who is beyond all these things, you can ask a request for moksha. So that's about it. That's about this topic where Lord Shiva with a form is the supreme reality. Thank you all.